Welcome. This particular webinar is, in my opinion, probably for if you signed up for it and are watching it, probably the most important webinar about interviewing and getting a job you will ever want or be exposed to. And you're going to learn a ton of stuff. Okay? This particular webinar is live. All of them are, but so I'll give the presentation, and then after the presentation, we'll take a short break for 1 or 2 minutes and then come back and I'll answer questions about this topic and any other questions you have about your career and I certainly appreciate every type of question that people ask. And so if, a lot of times you may ask questions that you don't think are relevant but really they're things that everyone probably has experienced or has something similar happen to them or will happen in the past. So what I'm talking about today is not just tell me about yourself interview question, but how do you respond to firms with different types of questions and things that they may have some interest in that they may want to know the answers to. These questions and things, your answers to these questions are literally something that I deal with all day. I prep attorneys to do these questions and make sure that they respond to them well. And I do interview prep with any candidate or BCG of mine that get the interview. I do these prep calls every day. I've been doing them for a few decades and enjoy doing these interview prep calls. But at the same time, I do these interview prep calls because law firms come back and they will reject people because of how well they answer these interview prep calls. Interview type questions. And then they'll also have questions on an ongoing basis about attorneys and things that they say that might be construed as the wrong answers, which they often are to these questions. And then finally, most people that get jobs are able to answer these questions correctly. Most people that stay employed in law firms are able to answer the question that I'm going to talk about correctly. And at the same time, most people that don't get jobs and get fired and so forth answer these questions incorrectly. So this is, in my opinion, because this is all I do for a living, talking to people again for a quarter of a century about this particular issue. I believe that this is going to be for you a very powerful. So this telling me about yourself questions, it's very common. It's generally the question that also eliminates the most applicants. People will ask it in different ways, but generally this question is one that ends up making attorneys blow their interviews and not do well. And the interviewer, when you go into an interview, they already know a lot about you. They have your resume, they know what your experience is, they know things about where you went to school and all those sorts of things are on your resume. So there's nothing that they don't know. But what they don't know are things that I'm going to talk about today, that these interview questions are really designed to determine when you get a law firm and the things that aren't necessarily on your resume. So the first question they have is whether or not you can do the job. And that's the work that they have. If you have the technical skills and things and a proper way of doing work. They also want to know how much you want the job. A lot of times people will go into interviews and they will not act enthusiastic. We'll talk about it in a second. They also want to know if you'll fit in. And they also want to know if you'll be managed. And then they also want to know if you're going to commit to the law firm and stay there long term. There's another question I also often candidates on is do we like you? But these really, if you are able to do well in these questions, then you will do well. And so anytime a law firm asks anything regarding, tell me about yourself or just general answers, these are general questions. These are what they're asking themselves. And I can tell you with 90% of candidates are going to be eliminating more on if you want the job, if you'll fit in, and can you be managed or will you commit, and even your technical abilities to do the job. And it's very interesting because a lot of people go into interviews and they think I need to convince the firm that I have this and this experience, and they put all these different things on their resume and that in reality isn't what matters the most. What matters is these sorts of questions. And they get the answer to those sorts of questions based on how well the way they question, such as tell me about yourself. And any question that gives you the opportunity to give open-ended answers is really a trap, but it's also an opportunity if you're able to answer that correctly. And when you get questions about telling yourself, they're not looking for your life story. They're more looking for your professional accomplishments and interest in the job that they have. And a lot of people, when they're asked questions, will make answers quite personal. And that's not something that we should do. It's not in your interest to do that. The first question they're asking, any law firm is asking when they're needing information about your experience is, can you do the job? And I've seen in my career tons and tons of attorneys that look good on paper, which isn't that hard to do. Anybody that knows how to do a resume correctly and puts a lot of thought into it can always look good on paper. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be qualified for every type of firm job, but it does mean that you are likely to be, your firms are likely to be interested in looking for more information. Tell me about yourself. And when they're asking you that question, then they're looking for, can you do the job? But they're really interested to see if you're psychologically and emotionally capable of your job. Working in a law firm hours, it can help you dealing with difficult people. There's all sorts of things about working in a law firm that are not normal. Law firm can be very demanding of your time. They can be, you might have to work with certain personalities, or there's just so much going on. The law firm is trying to figure that out. They're not just looking for your technical abilities. They're looking for, are you someone who's willing to work the hours they need? Are you someone who's willing to come into the office and work remotely? What is it specifically? Can you do this type of work? So that is a big trap. Law firms want to really see if you're capable of doing this. One thing I did want to just mention, and I'm going to go into more detail about this in a minute, but anytime you go into an interview, your goal is to get to the next step. So your goal is not necessarily to get all your questions answered about salaries and working remotely or whatever. Your goal is to get to the next step. So you never give answers that could possibly disqualify you. So people do this all the time. They say, can I work in the office? Can I work off site one day a week? They ask us in interviews, or what is the salary? This is what I'm making. And they do all these things to disqualify them from the next step. And so I highly recommend that anytime you're in a first interview and a second interview, you just get to the next step. You get the job. And then when you get the job, you can negotiate all this stuff. But when people are asking whether or not you can do the job, you just need to be able to show that you're a good fit for what that firm is asking for. I'll just give you some examples. Absolutely crazy, like the way people disqualify themselves from being able to do the job. And I see people doing this on an ongoing basis. I see attorneys do it. I see people in other places working for me do it. Not too once remember interviewing a person to work in a warehouse carrying boxed paper. And when I asked him to talk about himself, he launched into a long story about how he just recovered from back surgeries. Obviously, this person not someone that done the job. They just qualified themselves in the interview. I interviewed another guy once for a financial position, and there was a gap on his resume. And I'm like, what was that for? And I asked him, and he told me he recently got in federal prison for embezzlement. So that's absolutely crazy. People disqualify themselves for a job. And then one of the types of interviews I do all the time is I interview people to be legal recruiters for a company. And then a lot of time people will show up and say they're tired from practicing law in a large law firm and are looking for less pressure, fewer hours. And in my opinion, being a good legal recruiter requires people to be constantly committed and working long hours to be successful. And so if someone makes comments like that in an interview, then there's going to be a problem because we're going to basically drive down a other people and you create a culture of people that aren't working hard, but just ultimately it's candidates. So that, or someone that can't do the job. And so when attorneys show up for interviews, a lot of them, when they're asked this question, and again, tell me about yourself, could be just ways of could come out in other types of questions. But when this question is asked, people will often provide divorces or child custody or sometimes substance abuse problem. Or I saw one this morning where this person just kept talking about failing the bar. I've seen people talk about lawsuits, former employers, and other sorts of stuff. So all of these sorts of things are part of life. But if someone's preoccupied with something outside of work, it's clearly not someone who can job. That's just not the focus. So just the idea is someone has some sort of focus, whether it's overcoming substance abuse or whatever, a divorce and things. Law firms don't like that. They want to make sure that the person commits to the job, and that's important. Another big one, and this is somewhat something that I see literally on a weekly basis. Another big one is people saying, "Oh, I quit because someone in my family was sick and I couldn't conceivably work there while they were sick," or "I got very sick and I had to quit because I was sick." Or that's a very common one. I'm not trying to be rude or anything, and I'm not sympathetic to people who get sick. But at the same time, if you're quitting because just some relative or something got sick, then question becomes, are you going to quit if something else happens? Which is just a little bit concerning. But then the next question becomes, if you quit, why would you quit? Why wouldn't you take a leave of absence? Why wouldn't the law firm allow you to come back? So people always have these gaps on their resume where they say, "I quit," and that typically is someone that may not have the ability to do the job, and they'll disqualify from that. And anything in your answer that implies you can't do the work is the wrong answer. You can't do the work if you're just going to get up and leave. You can't do the work. All these things that people say make it very difficult for attorneys to get jobs when they're giving these sorts of answers that show a lack of commitment or which people might want to do. Sometimes a job in a law firm, for example, might require you to work alone. And then in that case, describing yourself as social might be a good idea, or describing yourself as social, not social, to require social would not be good. So also, the job requires you to others, and you need to describe yourself as someone that works in a team environment. So these are just, you figure out many times when you go into a firm what's important to them. But the problem, anytime you get the wrong answer, there are all these landmines in any interview. Like the landmines are things like talking about working remotely, or when they don't work remotely, or talking about being in an office when everyone's remote, or talking about patients. All of these things are landmines interviews. And when I say landmines, if you give the wrong answer to one question, you could be in a lot of trouble. There's some law firms, by the way, they have lots of structure and lots of reporting, so people are expected to do that. Other law firms don't have that. People are very independent. So you need to understand how the job is before you get those sorts of answers. And so structure, you would have to answer that question in a different way. You just need to figure out what the job requires and whether or not you're someone that can do the job and has the skills and motivation to do the job. So again, landmine questions are very difficult often to answer, but you just need to really make sure you give the right answer that aligns with what the job requires. Can you do the job? So the technical ability to do the job is important, but at the same time, the understanding the kind of the other requirements of the job, which are that how is the work required to be done? Like how all these sorts of things that are important to a law firm. In most cases, I'll talk about this in a minute, but it has a lot to do with the job too. So the next one that's incredibly important is whether or not you want the job. Wanting the job means when you go into the interview, you really look like you want it. You are not there in an interview to be sold by the law firm on working there. And people do this all the freaking time. I have no idea like why they do it. Gets us. I think it's not a good idea to do this at all, but people go into these interviews and consistently, and they will talk about not how they talk about things don't show that they don't want the job. And that's a real problem. Law firms want to feel when you go in, this is like the most important thing to you, because ultimately, most of the time, the person that wants the job the most is the one that is going to go in there. They're going to be enthusiastic and they're going to know about the firm. And they're also going to act like they're very impressed with the people that are working there, that they're very fortunate to have this job, and they'll come across that way. And they're asked about, tell me about yourself, so forth. They will come across with an answer that shows that they really do want the job and they're enthusiastic about it. There's a story I tell quite often, and it's very interesting to me how this kind of works. I remember years ago, I was working with this attorney from a big firm in New York. I don't know, it might have been Skadden. And she was moving to a firm she had to work in West Virginia. I think her husband had moved there or something. And I don't know, but West Virginia, I don't even remember what town it was. It was like Martinsburg or something. It wasn't like a huge town. And so she had to work there. And I remember these jobs at the time, she might have been making $300,000 or $400,000 a year or something. And these jobs she was interviewing were paying like 80 to 120. And she went in there and every single job she interviewed, even though the salaries were very low, she just blew everyone away, got these offers because she just acted like she wanted the job. And that's something I've seen from the very best interviewers my whole career. Like they're able to walk into a firm or wherever, regardless of, whether or not it's better, if they're better than them in terms of background, but they're able to walk into any firm and just get a position right away. And I think one thing that they do very well is they will walk in and they will just convince and blow away and the people inside the firm that they really want the job. And it's very interesting to me. That's the one thing that the best interviewers do, is they're able to just convince people that they really want the job. And this is like when you go and you start reviewing legal publications and everything and doing what you can to get to learn about people there, to learn about the firm, to learn about the matters they worked on, and then to come in and just be like, this is awesome. I love what you've done. And that's really an incredible way to convince people, and very, very good. There was one hire or one interview I remember years ago, and it's the only time someone ever did this one with me. And it was and I remember it very well. I was interviewing for a CEO for our company. And this guy came in and he was older. I don't know, probably in his late 60s. I don't know, but he's older. And he had very good experience, like when he was younger, when I say younger, 10 years ago, working for big companies. And then he had all this stuff on his resume that talked about the venture capital or like things that he was involved in that showed he probably had a lot of money. But anyway, so he came in and he interviewed, and at the end of the interview, said he just got up and he stood in front of my desk and he said, "Getting this job mean the world to me. It's something that I really would like to be part of your company and everything. Thank you for taking that time to interview." Wow, that's pretty awesome. But I didn't hire him. The person I hired was a guy that had a good resume, meaning his resume was he'd gone to a good law school, gotten an MBA from a good law school. He was from South Africa, I believe, and that's that came across as very professional. I hired and he came into the interview. I was interviewing him, and I was so impressed with his background. And he said, "Oh, at one point, I got to go. This is the middle of an interview because my dog is barking in the car." And I was like, geez, okay. But I was so impressed with him. I ended up making him an offer, and he hadn't acted like he wanted the job. And he joined the company and just was horrible. Like he was coming in at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. He was bringing his dog, peeing on the rugs, and not only that, what else did he do? Oh, eventually I fired him. I was like, this is crazy. You're not coming in, at a normal hour. Or you refuse to come in at a normal hour. And this is just inappropriate. It's not appropriate. It doesn't work. So I fired him, and then he ended up suing me and all this stuff. It's created a big headache. So the point I'm making is that people that want the job, that the one guy would have been much better. This guy actually ended up getting suspended or something from the bar for doing something illegal at another place. And then when he left, we also discovered that he'd been running a law practice on the side, and just all these problems and things. So when someone doesn't want the job, it can be a real nightmare. And my biggest mistakes, I think, have been when I've hired people who don't want the job. And it's a big deal. People sometimes get hired on the strength of their resumes, and law firms make a huge mistake. Right? There's one law firm in Los Angeles, I know, that is like this mid-sized firm. It's a well-respected firm. It only has an office in LA, but consistently it will hire people that leave these big firms like Sidley and Austin or things after some time there, and they'll have really good educational qualifications, and those people will join, and they really don't want the job as much as a lot of other people would, because they think they're better because they've made all this money at other firms, and so we'll join and then we'll always leave. And I don't know why there's a couple of firms like that. They just keep hiring people based on their qualifications. So I've heard answers or people, when you ask the question about do you want the job, I've heard people say, and this is liars, and people doing that with me, and it's a very personal question. And then they say, what do you want to know? Why? There's not much to tell. I need a job, and here I am, and had a hard time, hard life, and doing my best, and I wish that I have to work, but still do. But your answer to this question really will show that if you want the job. And law firms are looking for attorneys who are enthusiastic and appreciative of work, thinkers, and don't want to hire someone who's going to be defensive, lazy, resentful. And your answer to that question really needs to demonstrate a commitment to the subject matter, the ability to give it work. Telling a short story, interviewers like short stories regarding your interest in the subject matter, company, firm is always a good idea. I had a girl that I was talking to this morning, and she'd just gone out on her interview, and then before her interview, I interrupted her. And so she was a great candidate, and a lot of people are great candidates. Like I'm going to tell you in a second how to get your resume in a way that really works. But what she had done was she had immigrated from just about a country, but Central America, when she was like 14 years old or 15. She had a hard time immigrating. Some of her family wasn't able to come over, and that got her very interested at a young age in immigration. She worked during law school or college for some organization that helped immigrants get green, whatever, helped immigrants with things. She then did the same thing in law school. Her first summer, she worked for some public interest organization that did immigration. Then she did immigration after her summer associate for the firm. Then she got an offer. And then she, after getting that offer, she went there. Then before the bar, she went and had to travel to this country she was from and help some members, some people in her family get over to the U.S. And not only that, she'd written some articles. So then she was interviewing for an immigration job. So who would you hire? If you had to hire someone for a position, would you hire someone who really wanted to do that practice area? Everything on their resume showed they were interested in that practice area. Like they just completely looked committed to that practice area. Or would you hire someone that said, maybe I'll do immigration, maybe work to get the idea? Someone that really wants the job, your resume is going to show a lot of commitment to it. And then when you go into an interview, like you are going to be very excited about getting a job there. Like you are really going to show them that this is a place you want to be, because who would you hire? Like someone that's wishy-washy, or someone that isn't really sure about what they want? And then look at the successes you've had in your life. I don't care what your successes are. Are your successes being a certain type of athlete? Or your successes, I don't know, getting different types of offices or something? Or your successes related to being good at something, acting, writing? I don't care. What are your successes? And most of your successes are going to be things that you really want. And so why would you, for the way you make your living, for the way you are going to basically spend the majority of your waking time doing, why would you not act and do something that you want? And I want to be very clear with you right now too. If you do not want to be an attorney, well, you're competing or necessarily work in a law firm or whatever, you're competing with people that actually want it. Who do you think is going to do better? Someone that wants something, or you, if you just don't really want it? It's absolutely crazy. And people do this all the time. And then they flame out practicing law very early on. Sometimes people go to law school and things where I'm going to work in a large law firm for a couple of years and I'll do something else, and they don't want it. But you have to really want it. You can't. People often, they will go and do things like spend their time like on law firm sites to talk badly about law firms and things, and they won't necessarily be the kind of person that wants to work there. It's just very interesting. I remember there was a partner in a huge, managing partner in a huge, big law firm, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country. And they used to get reports because they can monitor your browser activity in your law firm. But they used to get reports and of the sites people went through and stuff. And he said, I thought it was funny. It's like, no one has ever, become a partner here that read above the law or something. I don't know. And I don't know, positive, bad thing. I think the idea is that people that are not, that think negatively about practicing law are often a big problem. How do you showcase passion when law firm interviews? Law firms would much rather hire attorneys who really want to work there, as opposed to people who are on the fence and don't seem to work at all. Everything comes through like in the way you talk to the way you talk and the way you answer questions. If the attorney wants the job, they really wants it, they want something, they're going to go there and try hard, right? So they're going to bring a higher level of achievement to the position than someone does not. Looking at law school grades, for example, when you're in law school, if you really work hard and get the best grades, it's pretty clear that you really want to be an attorney, and that can help. It's not, of course, the only thing. It's someone's enthusiastic about the work and really wants to do it. They're like pretty well. I know when I was practicing law, I sat next to and worked for this attorney that had never lost a case. And he had all these huge files of things about articles that he collected. And every day he would go to it. He'd be reading the legal newspapers. This is before it was online. He'd be reading the legal newspapers, and I'd see him with bringing things to his secretary, and she would use an X-Acto knife and cut them out and put them in these name folders and everything. This is something that he just loved. And then I was talking to I had this one attorney that I used to coach, and he was very interested in privacy law. He'd been out of law school like 15 years or something, and was very interested in that and did the same thing. Everything that was related to privacy law, he cut out and put in these folders and so forth. So these are people that are very enthusiastic about the practice area. And again, I want to say something to you as well. And you're probably not going to follow my advice, but I wish you would, is that if you really want to be an attorney and you know what practice area you want to be part of, it's not enough just to sit down and do the work you're given. That's one thing, but extra 5 or extra 10 minutes a day or something that you give yourself to learning about something relevant to what you do, whether it's writing articles or whatever, giving presentations. There are very few attorneys that do that. I look at the bios of people that have been out of school 30 years, and And there might just be like 3 short articles, whatever, legal news, online legal news or something, or 2 presentations and that sort of thing. You have to just have this focus of what you're doing that's more than anybody else. I want to give you an example. So say you are a law firm hiring a immigration attorney, and one immigration attorney has nothing but immigration related stuff on their resume. It's all focused, and then not only the work in it, but they're just over the top with articles and presentations and whatever about immigration law and just all of this interest. And then you get someone else who just is not that interested in immigration law, have it. They've got a job here and there. There's not a lot of enthusiasm for that. There's not really that much. There's one thing I've noticed also, and I hope you'll listen to what I'm going to tell you right now, because this is extremely important and something, again, that few attorneys do. But when the best attorneys do it, they do exceptionally well. So what is that? So the best attorneys, when they write down their experience, they are so proud of it. Like, they're so proud of their experience, and it's just like they do it. They make sure it's on their resume, and they highlight everything. They don't highlight, but they have very well thought out experience, and they're very proud of all the stuff that they've done. It's evident, and it comes through. And then a lot of times they are a corporate attorney or transactional attorney or patent attorney. They'll have additional, like a second page of their resume that talks about all the things they've done, and they just are very proud of it, and they just write it down. And then they have this extra page that they show. And I would say probably 1 in 250 attorneys do this. I mean, very few. And these attorneys always do interviews and jobs because they're passionate about what they're doing, and they're excited about the experience they've got. So that's just how that works. And they almost always get jobs. In contrast, attorneys will often just have resumes that don't show a lot of great stuff. And then those attorneys have a very difficult time getting jobs. This "tell me about yourself" interview question really is a way for you to show the employer how excited you are about them, about the firm, and how you should look very excited also on your resume. Once in an interview, I was asked about myself, and this was a firm, Valentine, in Los Angeles. And just the way I answered it completely, almost instantly got me the job. I was asked a little bit about myself, and I spoke about where I grew up, and then how my grandfather was a reporter and always wanted me to be an attorney. I spoke about how I'd been friends with Thomas Dewey. He's the founder of law firm Dewey Valentine. He's actually a presidential candidate. And talked about how my grandfather had been friends with him in college, and he talked to me about what a great career Dewey had. And then he said, if you'd be a lawyer, you should go to work at his firm. And so that put a lot of motivation in me to do that. And I was interviewing with Dewey Valentine at the time, and this went over extremely well. It showed that from a young age, I had really wanted to work at a firm. Like, that was something that was important to me and even important to my family. Thousands of firms in the country, or tens of thousands. It was this one that I wanted to work at. It showed I wanted a job. Somebody really wants something. You can tell from their body language. You can tell from their enthusiasm. You can tell from their tone of voice and the effort they put into their answer. And when you do this, when you answer this question, it's very important to be strong. You want to act like you're very enthusiastic, and you have to really give an answer that demonstrates your desire to be successful. And just do it again. Just to be an attorney, by the way, you need to really want it. You go to law school, you take the bar. To be successful in a law firm, you need to really want it. And that's going to be the difference between people that succeed and people that don't. You need to be, in order to be successful in interviewing, you need to really want it. And people that get pushed out of law firm, typically, those people are often pushed out because they just lose their enthusiasm. They start associating with people that are clearly going to leave the firm. And you need to really be strong, direct, and show the law firm that this is something that you really want to do. And it's important to you and you need it. And if you don't come across that way, then you're probably not going to get a job. And there's another thing too, that's important. So if you really want the job, meaning if you really want to do it, what happens is you're also going to be able to get clients. Clients want people that really want to do work for them and are enthusiastic. And that, I remember when John Quinn was getting started, and he's the founder of Quinn Emanuel, which now over 1,000 attorneys or whatever, a huge multinational law firm. When I started there, it was 40 attorneys maybe, and it's grown. But when he would go talk to clients, he would say, if you hire me, I'm going to eat, drink, and sleep this job, this case, and I'm going to do everything I can to win. And so that's what clients want to hear. And that's how you get work. I mean, if someone's just coming in and saying, oh, I'll do the work, doesn't really want to work, and that's not good. The attorney that gets a client and tells the client that they really want the job and they're going to work hard is the one more likely to get it. So the third thing clients are asking when they're trying to find out if you're a good fit for their job is whether or not you fit in. Or if you're asked about yourself, you need to understand the attorneys you're interviewing with. And so your answer to that question is really a very good opportunity to show you'll fit in. It's any way you can answer that question, but to show you fit in. Obviously, the first two things, can you do the job? Meaning you do it the way they need it done, be the kind of person that's there. The next one is, do you want the job? Meaning this is very important to you, but law firms also want to see if you're going to fit in, but they're looking for answers that indicate you're likely to fit in. And very important. This is a perfect opportunity to show how you'll fit in. I'll just give you some examples of how you can fit in and not fit into various jobs. When I was in college, I remember I interviewed for a job as a trader. They would train you to be a trader on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And I was interviewing when this firm I was interviewing with, all the men, when I walked in there, were watching the televisions in their offices and sports. They also had all the sports memorabilia around their offices. And I, fortunately, I was not a sports person. I was a sports person, but wasn't following all these sports. And, if they asked an interview question, a good way to answer that would have been talk about my love of the Bears and Bulls, something along those lines, just to sort of show up in. But you have to be not very smart to realize that a love of sports was an important requirement for fitting in with this particular employer. And instead, what I did is I didn't the correct answer. I talked about how I was enjoying studying African diaspora and interested in this, and this just didn't go over well. Law firms, any organization wants to work with attorneys that are similar and who they feel comfortable with. And law firm cultures, by the way, are all over the place. It's very difficult to see if you'll fit in law firms. There's lots of law firms that, predominantly gay or Catholic or Jewish, or people went to certain schools. And so that's how they end up fitting in. And in order to be part of the group, you need to be like the attorneys you're interviewing with. If you have something common with them, then they're more likely to be comfortable with you, and vice versa. And just, you should understand that group will organize around each other based on their interests and cultural and other characteristics. I'll tell you something that you probably don't want to hear. A lot of people don't want to hear. And one of the things that I've seen happen a lot of firms is firms for men can be very macho places where there's certain expectations. I've seen it happen at least 10 times where a man will take, and I'm not being critical of people or law firms, this culture, but a man will take paternity leave and then he'll come back and no one will, and he'll end up basically leaving or getting fired or something. But things are going fine before paternity leave. The culture of a firm doesn't necessarily like this male macho type cultures may not like taking maternity leave or different sorts of things. I saw a firm in LA, they interviewed someone and I knew one of the guys in charge of hiring there, and they interviewed this guy, and they said we're primarily a group of Jewish guys, and this person doesn't really fit. Now, this was 15 years ago, but he was just very honest with me. And then I've seen obviously the probably the opposite for people from different groups aren't going to fit certain firms. People they try to get people around them that they're comfortable with. And if they're not comfortable with them, then that is not necessarily the best thing. So the answer to this question is going to show often law firm whether or not you're fit or not. They're looking every law firm looking for a cultural fit, and your answer there needs to be tailored to your audience. You need to learn something about the attorneys you're interviewing before your meeting. You need to do your best to understand people working there, and the answer you give to that question really needs to show that you're going to fit it. Meaning, you need to look like someone who's going to fit in with that culture. So what does that mean? It means that you get a sense of that culture, what's required. You do everything you can to try to look like you're going to fit with it, be the kind of person that fit in with that culture. And I could give you a lot of examples and of cultures. I'll just tell you a funny example. When I first moved out to LA, I was interviewing with this firm that's no longer in existence, Heller Ehrman, and I was very excited to interview these people because it was a relatively small office in LA. All these people just have these rock star qualifications. They've gone to Yale and Stanford and done really well there and stuff. But it was a small office, maybe 10 associates. And so I showed up there like, dude, and I was very excited to interview with this firm because they had such great attorney. And I showed up there in a suit, and all of the people that I met one of them was wearing leather pants. These are associates with a tight shirt, and then other people were dressed very similarly. And I noticed that I interviewed 4 or 5 people, and they all had these American Spirit or whatever these filterless cigarettes were on their desk. And a lot of these guys were wearing jewelry and stuff. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was motorcycle riders. I have no idea, or that was just some sort of, but anyway, much different than me had ever seen. And I was like, wow. And so I interviewed with them, and I thought the interview went very well. But again, I'm sitting there in a coat and tie and a suit. And then they called me a week later, and they said, we don't think that you would be comfortable here. So us not letting you come here is actually good for you. And so the idea was I didn't fit in with the culture. And if you don't fit in with the culture someplace, then that's a big deal. So it's not that there's anything I could have done to fit in with that culture, but I think you should think about all the different interviews and things you've had in the past, and how the culture resonates with you, and how the people resonate with you. There are so many freaking cultures out there that you need to really understand whether or not you're going to fit. I remember interviewing with this law firm in Los Angeles. I don't know if it was Morgan or some Bacchius, but it was a very white shoe firm, and it was just completely quiet. The people I was interviewing with were just extremely serious. And when I remember their firm was so quiet, I sat outside of an office or something for a little bit, and I didn't hear anything. And it was just so quiet. I just knew that culture wasn't a fit for me. It was terrifying. Just when I talked to people, it was scary. And so you have to find a culture that you're comfortable with. And a culture means you walk into the firm and you feel like some sort of connection. Maybe the people are really organized in a way that makes you comfortable. Maybe they're a little loosey-goosey and fun and not organized. There's just all sorts of different cultures. Some firms, people like to drink. It's just, who knows? There's just different cultures. I remember when I went into the interview with this Emmanuel, I walked into this office for an interview, and a couple of these guys were chewing tobacco. And I was like, this is incredible, because that's something I thought only people did, in Michigan, in areas outside of Detroit and stuff. Anyway, so that was a good culture. So because I enjoyed doing that at the time. Anyway, so you need to understand the culture and whether or not the culture fit. And then you need to get a sense of the culture and then try to get the job. So try to act like you're part of that. So if they ask you about, tell me about yourself, so you need to try to come up with an answer that talks about the culture. Now, the next one is, can we manage you? Management is actually being able to manage someone is actually a pretty big deal. If you're able to be managed, that means you're able to follow instructions, that you don't have an issue with stuff, like you will do what people want. People in a law firm want you to be a certain way. There are attorneys in many firms who are manageable. If you want to work in a law firm, you need to show that you're able to take direction and follow instructions. And this is actually very important, being managed. I often work with lots of partners that are, interested in transition corporations, for example, and a lot of them are well known. They may have done all these things, but at the same time, they go into companies and they'll tell them that how things should be done and what they should be doing differently. I'll never forget it. I had an in-house opening I was filling in. I was filling this job in New Orleans, and not even New Orleans, but some small bayou town that happened to have this large toy company that imported stuff from China, and then they got sued for trademark infringement or whatever infringement, and then they would defend themselves. But anyway, all these people that were candidates for the company, there were people from incredible firms like in New York, it's great law firms. But all these people would come in and basically would tell the firm that they knew how things should be done. They knew how these cases should be handled. And the law firm was basically, or the toy company, was essentially looking for someone that could just sit in the law firm, the company, and defend all these suits, meaning do it themselves. And they wanted to hire someone because they wanted to make money. But then what these attorneys would do, what the attorneys would do is they would basically say, I need to be able to manage these, I need to be able to hire outside counsel to do these cases. And that's the way this needs to be done. And so none of those people got the job. And it was interesting because the company wanted someone to actually litigate the cases. And these people wanted to come in and do it their way. This is not what's proper. And another thing that you need to also think about anytime you are trying to run anytime you're trying to work someplace, one of the hugest mistakes that people make, and this mistake is just so profound and such a big mistake, is that what law firms need when they're interviewing people, have two types of people. You have soldiers that do the work and carry them out and don't offer a lot of criticism and stuff. They just do the work. And then you have generals. And generals are people that give out the work. They don't want to have their assignment questioned. They're the things they want done and the way they want it done questioned, just want it done. And that's what a law firm is paying you to do when you're trying to when they're hiring you. They're paying you to basically get work done and not to question the work. If you're offering strong opinions about different things and think things should be done a certain way and are questioning people, you're going to get fired. I have seen so many attorneys. One of the things that happens in law firms, and again, this one thing I'm saying here could save your career. So many times in a law firm, a partner will assign this work, and many times that work that they assign isn't really necessary. Like you may find reasons that the client would be better off with a partner if they didn't do the work. But that's just not often the case. Like, a partner's just trying to make money, and they may be billing something that may not be necessary. You may not even know why it's necessary. So your job is not to come and tell the partner it's not done. Things in your resume, I see people not get jobs all the time. I've seen people put protest movements on their resume that take sides of something. I've seen behavior that may serve a social purpose, but shows the employer you may be willing to go against their policies. By the way, people that have all these protest things and things on their resume, I'm not criticizing you for being part of the protest movement, but At the same time, you have to be very careful because because when you have these things on your resume, shows you might be manageable. So you need to be very careful with that. So how do you avoid looking like you're unmanageable? One of the things that people will always do is they very often will start talking about why they didn't like their current or former positions. And they'll say things maybe implying that there was some sort of ethical breach at their firm. They'll say things implying that the client service was bad. They'll say things implying that there were toxic partners or whatever. And if you say these sorts of things, they find you can't manage and it's going to be a problem. And most employers have a goal, something they're trying to do, and they need people that are willing to follow instructions. And they don't want attorneys who are going to undermine, constantly question the organization's objectives unless they're upper managed. One of the biggest cancers inside of law firms are people that are unmanageable. I'm sure if you've worked in a law firm, you have talked to people that are against the firm, that will say negative things about the firm. People who go into doors, go into offices, close doors and things and talk negatively about the firm. And so if you show you're going to be difficult to manage, you're going to have a difficult time getting hired. And I think you can know the kind of people that are difficult to be managed. They will basically avoid accountability. They will not want to do the things that the law firm wants, whether it's working in the office or asking people to quit because the law firm wants them to come back to the office. All these sorts of things can hurt you. The next one is if you're able to do the job long term. This is the final one, and we're almost done with this, but this is another huge thing. What happens is people go into interviews and they give basically look like they're not going to commit at the firm. Sometimes there's just a lot of movement on their resume, but people love this one all the time at the interview stage. I have seen people show up to interviews and announce that they were hoping to relocate to a different location at some time in the future. I was interviewed people that come in to be writers in our company, and they'll talk about how they want to do something else. So create plays and stuff. And so when you're working attorney, when as an attorney, you have to talk about wanting to do that. And I have a job, for example, be related to writing profiles of law firms. The attorneys the odds of them lasting are close to zero. I interviewed people that talk about how they want to work another year or so. So one of the things I just, I'm almost done with this webinar, so we'll go up to questions, but one of the things I think is very important is the reason law firms want you to look like you're going to work there long term, and you need to make that very clear, and you need to make it look like you're going to commit for a long time. The reason they want that is because if you aren't going to commit, then they're going to have to find someone else. If you're not going to commit, then they're going to have all these client relationships that you're not necessarily going to be able that they're going to have to break. So it doesn't look good for clients, different attorneys. If you're not going to commit, then they're going to have to train someone. And then the attorneys are going to have to spend all this time reviewing resumes and trying to find someone. It's just very important to be able to, for attorneys to be able to find, or law firms to be able to find the right attorneys for their openings that are going to commit. And so you cannot say anything that looks like you're not going to commit. If you're not going to commit, it's bad for the morale of the lawyers there, because you may be leaving for something that pays more, and if you're leaving for something that pays more, then that doesn't look good to the attorneys that are there, because they feel like, oh, our firm does not pay enough, and makes you get another job. Why would you hire someone who's not going to commit? So I often like to give examples of people like yourself that may be hiring people to work in your house. Let's say you needed a nanny. If you needed a nanny, you might interview someone that had been at their last job for 10 years taking care of people. And that would you probably think highly of that, the person who lasted 10 years. Then you might have interview a person that had a stretch of 1 year, would work 1 year, one place, 1 year, another place, 6 months, one place. Who would you hire? You would hire someone that's going to commit. And the personality of someone that's going to commit is much different. And And again, this is extremely important. So the idea of committing means that when you go someplace, you make sure that you get through issues, you're there, you're learning, don't just fail at the first sign of trouble. I tell the story a lot, but when I first started recruiting, one of the first people I hired who worked at her last job for 8 years. The second person I hired, I think, worked at her last job 14 years. And then I hired a smattering of people that have been there for 1 year, 3 years, and so forth. The attorney that had been there 8 years lasted at our company like 10 years. The attorney that had been at her firm like 14 years lasted at our company like 16 years. So people that commit are just different types of people. And both of those people, by the way, were some of the most, successful people that had ever worked at the company. One of the things, this is just another kind of thing that you could answer when you're talking to law firms. I love this particular answer. I remember when I started out and someone told me about how much law firms like it when attorneys working for them, bought a house, got married, had children. Law firms love that. But the reason is because you have a commitment. You can't just get up and leave and travel. You're there and you have people to support you of a family. They like people that are in that position because they're like, commit. And those sorts of people are, they're earning a paycheck, they're like, it's the firm, they're not going to move recklessly because of those obligations. And so they need to earn money. So a lot of firms love that. So it's just a very important thing to do. If attorneys talk about something they wouldn't want to do with their careers, then that's something to worry about. But this commitment issue is very important. It comes up for me every day. Like every day, a law firm asks, why didn't this person stay? This person brought out along. Why didn't this happen? What about this? And so that is something that is important to be aware of. Law firms really value commitment. You would too. You have to talk about things that show your commitment. You look committed when you're on paper, but talking about it as well. The other way of you can think about answering questions or how do you see yourself? Were you capable of doing the job? Do you identify with you? Are you focused? How long are you likely to last on the position? Are you going to follow directions? How will you get along with others? And these answers are the same as tell me about yourself. You need to see yourself and your answer to every question from the law firm point of view. Law firms want to hire people that are going to do the work the way commit to their way of doing work. Whatever, long hours, weekends, travel, like you cannot, again, all of these things are red flag, are landmines because if you answer them correctly, you're going to be in trouble. So they want to know that. They want to know whether or not you're going to commit. They want to do the job long term. A final thing, though, that I want to answer that I haven't really talked about fully today, this is a very important thing, is do we like you? This is a huge thing that you can get yourself disqualified for very quickly by giving the wrong answer. Do we like you? So in this country right now, it's very polarized. If you put things about being a Republican on your resume or very interested in that, you're going to disqualify yourself from a tremendous number of people in firm. They are not going to like you and you will be in trouble. The same thing goes if you're a Democrat. You want to put all this stuff on your resume. They are not going to like you. And there's people that won't like you and you are going to be in trouble. People put the stuff on the resume. It is absolutely insane. You do not want to do it because whatever law firm you're interviewing with, you have no idea who these people are. But if you put someone next to a Republican next to a Democrat now, I'm not saying that animosity, but they're probably not going to like it. So you need to be very careful about that, or they're going to have disagreements. People do things that show they're not like them. Other people will put organization on their resume for whatever reason or another. Be polarized on what they're about. These organizations, they be about, I don't know, just different organizations that show some sort of polarizing interest that could be offensive to others. Now, I'm not agreeing one way or another that this sort of stuff is okay. I don't say that don't have anything against Republicans or Democrats or people from certain organizations. But if you put things on your resume that are polarizing, then people are not going to like you. If you don't smile and try to, when you get into an interview, and try to create some sort of affinity with the person you're talking to, then you're not going to get the job. People like people that really want the job. People like people that respect them and want to work for them. People like people that are good people and that they believe will be good. I remember, this is just a funny story, when talking about the do we like you question, is when I was very young, say young, 11 or something, my mom took me up to this farm to pick out a dog. And in this one little dog, there was a run little litter, ran out to me and was just very friendly and jumping up and down and stuff. And then there were these other dogs that were these beautiful, like spaniels, were very much better looking and stuff. But I picked a dog that liked me the most, and that's how I got that dog, changed the dog's life. When I applied to college, I went there and the admissions officers and told them how much I liked them and that's where it comes. I was very enthusiastic, all completely gung-ho about this school and how much I liked it. And then part of the letters telling how much I liked it and was able to get in there when I didn't have the same qualifications as my school, but better SATs, more APs with higher scores than I did, but was able to get in there because I liked them. The same thing happened when I applied to law school. I got the attention of admissions people and how much I liked. Same thing when I got my clerkship for the judge. I identified, read all this opinions or things. It was the same political party to see, and I don't know how much I liked it. The same thing when I got my first job. So anything that's ever happened to me in my life that's very positive in terms of getting jobs, in terms of this recruiting business I run, is because I've made people like me by liking them. My first placements were with firms where I would talk to the recruiting coordinators and an hour or so shooting or talking about various things related to personal connecting with people personally. You need to be liked and you need to connect with people personally. If you're able to connect with people personally, you're going to do much, much better than just being a certain type of person. I want to tell one more story because I think it's a very interesting story about being liked. Years ago, I was talking to this woman who was a patent attorney who was unemployed. She was in Michigan. Well, she'd gone to University of Michigan. I think she'd gotten an electrical engineering degree, which is very hard to do at that school, and done well. And then she'd gone to law school and also done well. And so she got an interview with this giant firm in Chicago and then just suddenly stopped working there. Why? And then after that, she had contacted BCG. So I was contacting her and I contacted her and talk about her. And she was basically like talking to me while she was like shopping in a mall or something. And most people, just as a sign of courtesy, because their careers are involved, right? When I talk to them, they're right there. They're in a room ready to do a Zoom. They put themselves in a quiet place and because the group's important, I'm going to try to help them. But this woman was like running through a mall, like talking to people, like while I was trying to talk to her. And then I started asking her questions because I wanted to personalize her to law firms. And she was very rude. She said, "You don't have the right to ask me these questions. The only thing that matters is the fact that I have good educational background or workplace." I'm like, that's just not true. Like I need to be able to personalize you to the firm. It's my job, by the way, my job as a recruiter. I just don't send a resume. I try to make the law firm like the person, and I talk about what's special about the person and why the law firm should interview. But anyways, I get to this interview and I'm sorry. So I'm talking to this woman and I was like, I just can't help you. I'm sorry, but I can't help you if you don't allow me to make you into a real person and someone that the law firm can connect with. And she said, all right, that's fine or whatever, and hung up the phone. And then she called me back 2 or 3 times and I didn't pick up. But so then I was wondering, who the hell is this person? And I looked her up online. And there was she sued her former law firm and lost. for letting her go. And then and I think she made up some stuff. So she actually lost her money. I don't know. And then she'd gone around and she'd been suing, random people all around Michigan, like a hair salon that she said didn't do her hair, just all these crazy things. And so that was someone that didn't care about being liked. But that's my whole goal when I represent a candidate. And if there's any secret to what I do, or that why I care about what I do so much, is I take someone and I read questionnaires, you review everything you can, this call, and then I go and I try to make the person look unique. I'll talk about their family, how they grew up, their interests, their passion, why they have those passions, and all these sorts of things. I'll talk about those, and that's in an attempt to make the person a unique individual. And I think that it's very important for people to appear to be unique people, or it's just to be likable and talk about their background. No one does. Most people send a resume. One of the benefits of using a good recruiter is that, and I'm not saying all of the stuff I'm saying, by the way, you don't still need a recruiter, but what a recruiter does, or what I do, is I get all these personal things about the person that makes them look unique and makes them likable that the person wouldn't necessarily be able to do on their own. You certainly can't write an article and say I'm from this family of all these different people, but that's what I like doing with recruiters. I like getting that information, because then I make my candidate likable compared to the 100 other people that are applying. Likable also means when you interview with people that you come across genuine and human. We like people that are people. Everybody, by the way, has the same sort of stressors and things. You have conflict with your significant other or your parent. You may drink too much, eat too much, not enough. I have psychological therapy, whatever. Everybody's unique, the same. People have different issues, but the more we understand the more many times our friends know us, the better off we'll be. But the more human we are and our friends like us. I did want to make one quick point in regards to the law firms, letting them know negative personal information. Negative personal information would be things that reflect on you negatively. For example, talking about going to AA or having recovered from substance abuse or being sued or something you tell to an employer that's negative, they will use against you, if not directly in the way they think about you. So you do have to be careful. But sharing positive personal information that makes you likable is great. Taking care of a sick parent actually doesn't fear their job, but people like people that are likable. People like people that like them. So you need to figure out going into an interview how to like people and how to make them think that you like them. I remember when I quit the practice of law and started doing a recruiting job, I remember that also when I used to be a contractor when I was not an asphalt contractor, but where I would go around and do driveways and parking lots and things. But I remember in terms of doing that job, I would always think to myself, wow, I love this people that are hiring me. There's just nice people. And I would go every year, show up at their door and say, wow, I'd love to do this work for you. When I started recruiting, I would do the same thing. I would think how much I like these people inside a law firm, because you need to be likable. So the idea with, just to finish everything here, being able to do the job, being likable, all these things are very important and things that law firms want to see. And I apologize for spending so much time on this. I know this has been a long webinar, but my point here is that all of this really is what gets you a job or what doesn't. And I'm sure there'll be a replay of this webinar. I would review it just because there's a lot of information here that can help. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick break just for maybe like 2 minutes. And then when I come back, I will take questions. And again, what I would recommend is any questions that you have related to your job search, you should, I would love it to ask. It doesn't have to be about your job search, it can be anything about your career. The reason I like these questions so much is because people don't always People don't always think that their questions are to be asked, or they don't think that they're that important. But most of the time, any question that you do have actually is important. And so I really appreciate any questions that you have for hopefully we can answer in the webinar. There's always a lot of players out there. And what are some red flags? What are some forward assessment and the potential for long-term employment? How can I proactively address these concerns if I have a history of frequent job changes, career pivots, might raise doubts about stability? Okay, let me tell you and everybody real quickly what these job changes mean, why having job changes, a lot of job changes in your resume can be very difficult. And these are questions that law firms ask me every day. And the first one is almost most people, not all, but most people that leave employers are leaving because there are issues with committing. That's one thing. The issues with committing to an employer, and commitment is important. Law firms make partners out of people that commit. I'm a little out of it today, by the way. I could some done drill from my allergies. So tired and loopy, but most people are in because there are issues committing to an employer. Often when you be ours because they told me, and then also they often leave. They often leave because fired, or absolutely fired, or they leave because of whatever personal issues. I'm sorry, like personal issues being managed, personal issues, making personal issues. So what does that mean? So if a person has a hard time committing to an employer, it means that they just will get a job. They will constantly be looking for a job. They are never happy wherever they're at. Maybe they're happy practicing law and they're not able to commit. It's very common, for example, for attorneys, they're large law firms who often think that things are going to be different if they move to a different law firm with a different culture, or thinking that maybe they're going to be happy at a smaller firm, when in reality, they're just unhappy in a law firm environment. That often happens. So leaving to try to find a better employer is not necessarily good. And people do that a lot. And obviously, that's how I make my living, moving from firm to firm. But if there's a pattern of that, then you're pretty much going to be out. So you're going to have a very difficult time. If you are at a second firm, for example, a second firm is 3 years or 3 years, and then you want to move again, and it's pretty clear that you're probably going to do the same thing the next firm. And it's very common to see people moving several times. And so if you're a law firm, what would you do? Would you hire that person that moves a lot, or would you hire someone who's stable? Someone who's stable is obviously a much better fit. So stable. The other thing you have when you leave, it's bad for the morale. Often of the people that are there because they think that maybe there's problems with the people that are there. Maybe the problems with the firm, one person leaving often results others. So that's one thing. And then it's a risk for a law firm to hire someone that they'll look like they're gonna leave again. And then also it's for clients, because clients have to get someone else has to get up to speed on the matter. So that's not good. And then filing costs, attorney time, finding people, and then in addition, the issue cost finding people, and then in addition, the law firm is going to be running on different types of work at a time. So that's just all the telling a little spaced out. I apologize. So that's one of the those are some issues. And then finally, people often, because they don't like you know what to do, they don't know what to do. It could be remote work, whatever, or hours required stuff. So over. And then just some of the obviously personal issues, and the rest is very common. What happens is a lot of times people will go to a firm and they will try to do really the first couple of months or whatever, for several months, and then eventually they will leave because of that. Another thing that typically happens is people will resent criticism. So it's something that can anytime you're at a firm, it's a good firm, there's always, you're going to do work a certain way and so forth. And so people will leave because they resent operations. Those are how a law firm will view that. And you have really quite a bit to overcome when that happens. These are all questions and issues that the law firm want to think about. And then the final thing, who would you hire? Would you refer? Would you hire you? Would you hire someone stability or not? Or then just realizing there are going to be the other people you are competitive for. So these are that's a lot to think about. And I want everyone to really think about this quite a bit, because if you leave a lot of firms and you're doing that, then it's really not good for something that employers will avoid. It's not good necessarily for you trying to get jobs because you're competitive against others. And then the biggest red flag is if you're not, what does that mean? Sorry, most people that are not employed, most people in this situation lost their job because most people, because why would you not work? Why would you not work? Because you presumably need money. One thing I would just tell you, being unemployed is a huge risk of your career. Your odds of getting a position, if unemployed, and I'm going to answer this question. If unemployed, your odds of getting a position go down about 10 times harder. And it's always been that way. It's just, if you're unemployed, you're going to have a very difficult time getting a position because it looks like there's something wrong with your performance, and it's going to make it a lot harder for you to get a job. So I really want to make sure that everyone understands this, that when you're moving, this is what you're up against. Now, there's nothing wrong. So there's certain things or nothing wrong with moving. Going to better firms, meaning you start out at a firm, for example, firm doing work for small companies, and then smaller companies, and then going to firms where you're doing work for a public company. So that you can move, and multiple moves are often okay if you're going to better and better firms. That just makes it look like you're moving because you want to work someplace so that's better. An example would be you go to one firm, a small firm, then you move to a mid-sized firm, then you move to a large firm, and you might do that in 3 or 4 years. And that actually looks good. So as long as you stay at a big firm for a few years, they're not 3 or 4 years, that's going to actually work very good. Another thing that I just want to bring to everyone's attention is I don't think maybe want to move during your first 5 years is okay, but I really don't think that moving more than that is often not that good of an idea. And it takes an attorney about 5 years of training to understand a practice group. So you really, whether it's be a corporate attorney or a litigator, it takes about 5 years. You really need to make sure they commit during that time. So how do you look like someone is going to commit to a firm? You move to better and better firms. Sometimes you might want to move to another market. You can address all of this if you're able to show that. Sometimes you could also move for a practice area. Just you may be doing, I don't know, you might be doing general corporate and then you want to do M&A. So those kind of moves are often okay, but you just need to be very careful about your moves in order to address them. The red flags are often where you can say certain things happen. An example would be move one might be you firm lots of major clients. 2 might be firm 2 to a new firm, and then that could be firm 3 is bigger firm. But you just need those are reasons that are going to move. But you just need to be very careful. There needs to be some reason for your moves on your resume that makes sense. And whoever you are, I just strongly recommend that you're as careful as you possibly can about moving, because there have to be good reasons for the move. And there's people that once they move a couple of times, they're likely to move again. So You just have to go into everything, realizing these issues. I was working with a woman today who has moved, I don't know, 3 times, and now she's unemployed. And so what is the reason that she's unemployed? Sometimes good reasons are the firm no longer has enough work. Or things along those lines that are, they lost a client. So that actually is something to work. But there's some other things you talked about. You talked about career pivot. So career pivots could be things like going in out, or I saw one person when I was working the other day on teaching at a law school. Or when you have those sorts of career pivot, you have to be very careful, because when you're doing something like that, you're really showing a potential law firm that being in a law firm is not what you wanted. And then to come back, most law firms will not hire you. I have tried to work with thousands of in-house attorneys that want to go back to a law firm after having gone in-house. And I'll just be completely frank with you, that rarely worked out. Most of the time when people do that, they just have a very difficult time getting back to a law firm, because it shows where your head's at. You want to do something else, you prefer to be in-house, you prefer to be in a law school. And all those things, they're just very difficult. The other one is sometimes practice areas, so that means you were doing one practice area, and now you want to, you need to quit to doing something else. And many times people do that because they think that in another practice areas, like the law better, like a law firm better. And that's really the case. It's all of these things raised out about your stability. So how do people get back into law firm and do all that? It's very difficult to get back to. If you're at a large law firm and you've been at too many firms, or you were at a large law firm and you went to several other firms, it's very difficult to get back to a large law firm. It's also very difficult to get back to a large law firm if you've done something like going in-house, teaching a law school. Another one is starting businesses. That would be very good. The biggest thing is that law firms really want to hire someone that shows a lot of stability in a law firm, and wants to do that and wants to do that practice area. And so you need to be very careful. How do you transition into a law firm after this? How do you transition? One of the things that I recommend, I had a long call with an attorney that that worked at a big law firm, for example, a senior attorney, big law firm that unemployed a lot of that. This is just an example that I was working on today. He wanted to get back. Said, "Oh, I'm going to take courses," and he was a corporate attorney and take courses on data privacy or something, and hire back. And he's only been out of law school 20 plus years. And I told them that the odds of that are pretty much impossible. No one's going to hire 20-year attorneys because they went back and got experience in something else. There's just nothing to do being the corporate. Important to understand that. And this, by the way, question, or the reason I love these sorts of questions, is this is an incredibly important question, something that a lot of people have that issue with. So nothing to do with being a corporate attorney. And so what did I tell him to do? It's what you do. So what can you do to get in your job? And so what you do is you apply to firms that all over the country, that smaller firms that are willing to take a risk, or just you take a risk, or you apply for, you find firms that are going to overlook that. So you find firms that, what I'm going to show you right now is extremely powerful, and I really hope, and this is for everyone, this may just blow you away. What I'm going to show you, like what you need, what every attorney needs to do if you want to get back to the law firm, regardless of career pivots, regardless of all this stuff. It's actually very easy to do. It's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to do, but you need to know how to do it. I'm going to show you right now how to do it. And this is work right now, just the time you spend. We've been going on for a couple hours. This is more than worth the time we've spent on this webinar so far. Give me 1 second. I just want to pull something up. I don't want to share any information. I shouldn't. Little names, for example. So give me 1 second. I'm going to show you what I would and what works. And I've been doing this job for 5 years, and I'm not bragging and again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I can get any attorney in the country, anywhere, a position with the resources that I have at my disposal. And I'm going to show you exactly how I would do it. And by the way, most BCG candidates do not follow my recommendations about what I'm doing. When I say I get any attorney in Canada, I absolutely mean that, any attorney job. What get a law firm to pay for those candidates, pay BCG for those candidates. Almost 90 as a recruiter, meaning I charge law firms fees to hire candidates. In almost all instances, I can, but not always, because sometimes candidates are not able, won't follow my advice. So I'm going to show you right now how exactly what I'm going to do. Now, these are fake video accounts. So I'm not showing you anyone here. It's necessarily someone that could turn. Okay. So this person is submitted for appeal. Juris Doctor, 2010, West Los Angeles, which is a law school in Los Angeles, but it's not accredited. Let's hear this person. So the practitioner, counsel, civil litigation, just want to make sure. Good advocate, research regulations, full-time prosecutor. Okay, so this is a prosecutor, criminal trials, okay, criminal attorney, okay, so this person is a criminal attorney, no law firm, is looking for a job. I am going to go in and just say what I would do that. I would practice area. And look, by the way, there's hundreds of practice areas, but this is in criminal law defense. Okay, that's fine. And then I will also probably go into white collar, just show you how that would. Okay, so what do you do to get someone a job, and how would you get a job if you needed a position, and what would you do? And these resources I have at my disposal are very strong, something that most people don't have, but I can basically show you the idea of it. So I would go in and I can look at matching jobs for this person. Let's go look some geographic areas. Now I want to show you something that's very important about where you might be searching for a position, and the areas that you might be searching for positions. So this person says their preferred location, Alameda, California. That's fine. What I would do, just to make sure you were probably searching the entire state of California, then it's always smart to search for positions in areas where other people aren't necessarily paid. So if you want to find a position and you're unemployed, looking for a job, it's always smart to probably look at areas where other people may not be searching, if there's not a lot of competition. So Nevada, there's probably not a lot of competition. Probably not a lot of competition, as much competition. And if you already do Oregon, if you already do, yeah. And the reason I'm showing you all of this, because I'm just showing you an example of what you really need to do in order to get a position. You need to often look at and do searches in a lot of geographic areas that people aren't really, there's not as much competition. How do you do that? If you look at the U.S. map, and I'm just showing you how powerful some of this stuff is. So I see here we got here. Now you got Nevada, Arizona, how about Idaho, and Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. I'm not saying that this person wants to work in those areas, but I'm just showing you what's most effective. If you really need a job, you want to work, you really want to work, you think that you're not going to get hired, then these sorts of ways of searching are very powerful, very building. Now, this particular person probably does not need to search in all of these areas, but I will, with no law firm experience, and they want to get a job, they can. The thing I would do here is I would look at all the jobs in the BCG database, just showing you how that works. So there's all of these positions, just for a lot of them. I wouldn't apply rankings for candidates. I'm not going to get too far into it, but firms, but the rankings mean basically the size of the firm. This person is not going to get a job with a major firm. And I would, select those. Then I would go in and, again, this is extremely powerful. I'll explain it to you in a minute. Then there's archive jobs, which means firms that have had the same positions before. So those are often good targets that we've helped someone apply to. And then so I'll go there and show you that. And this is not something that I would necessarily do for a candidate that's in BCG. I wouldn't give them all these firms, but I'm just showing you firms. And by the way, if you're looking for a job, law crossing is a very good way to find positions because it has positions that you get off of websites of firms and so forth that aren't advertised, and you won't find like on Indeed and LinkedIn. So these are just use work, BCG, that are great here as well. So then you can also, you can look at, these are just some lists of recommended firms. So these are 379 firms in these areas of the country that do that work. So suddenly you have all of these places that probably aren't getting application. And most of our placements are with firms that are not necessarily on the map. Other people don't know about them. There's 25 firms right here, and there are 29 firms, and then you can go in and search for defense personal regions of preferred location. 21 firms. Then you get. And then you would go. Then I would go in. Or issue in any event, I would search for whether that's the first version of interest. So then you get 301 firm. So the point is that this is just jobs in the VC database that we have that wouldn't serve but top right. So you get those. And so the total firms and places person apply here are to, then you would have over 250 places the person can apply to. So your question is, what do you do if you're unemployed? How do you find a position in that particular situation? And anybody can get a job if you apply to firms like that. I've had thousands, but an incredible number of people that I've gotten jobs for doing that because that procedure or that way of doing it. Okay, during the webinar, you mentioned the importance of being adaptable management styles in the law firm. Could you elaborate on specific strategies or behaviors that have helped Chinese customer adapt to demanding or micromanaging supervisor? Are there particular traits or approaches that firms value in such scenario? Yeah, so if someone is very difficult, someone you don't like and difficult to manage or be managed by, often it makes a lot of sense to try to just avoid working with that person. That often is a good way of doing it. But in terms of another way of doing it, you have certain firms that have different ways of being managed and so forth. I believe that it's important to learn how those firms are important to be amenable to those ways of being managed and to try to work with them. In some cases, it may be intolerable to being managed in a certain way. And this is an example of a firm that you may want to read, not part of it. Now, I've been in a situation where law firms have required certain things from me that I didn't think were fair in terms of doing things in a certain way. Or I remember one firm wanted me to work my hours every day. There's just all these things that you can do or should do in order to adapt to the management style of someone and the people supervise. The first one I would do often is try to avoid that person. If you can't avoid that person, then learn how to do things their way and make them happy. Often when you fall into place to be managed the way that the law firm requires, or the supervisor requires and wants, they will often like you or great. They will be very nice to you once you learn how to do that. That would be my biggest piece of advice, is to learn how to be managed in the way that supervisor wants. And if it doesn't work out, certainly look for a new firm. But yeah, you've got a very good point. And I was in a law firm once where there was this woman that was very difficult to work with. And over a history of 15 years, then I had no idea about this when I went to work at the firm. People would work for her and they would suddenly within 6 months or so be out the door because she was so difficult to work with. A girl that had been at that firm before I was, actually, it's hard to believe. I mean, she went to Columbia Law School and had some great things in her background, and she actually was shell shocked by it. she became a waitress after leaving or losing her job there. So you have to be very careful. The biggest way of doing things, people are in the ways that people want, you just do whatever it is they require in the way they want, and just try to be managed in that way. And it's not easy to do for that's your situation. So you have to basically be managed in the way that the law firm wants. Okay, for recent graduates, what elements are crucial, including the tell me about yourself answer to compensate for the lack of extensive legal experience? Okay, so not having recent experience, and if you want to work in a law firm and you're a recent graduate and ask you that question, you talk about wanting to work hard. You talk about wanting to learn. You talk about how excited you are for this position. You talk about always wanting to have work in that practice area. You talk about knowing you need experience. One of the things that I encourage law students to talk about is being as interested as possible in the legal experience, in the job. And also you need to go into interview understanding that one of the most important things of an interview is to help make sure that the law firm knows how much you would value being trained, how much you obviously wanted to be an attorney, and you went to law school for these reasons and so forth, and that can make a difference. My ex-wife went to a law school and really wanted to be a trademark attorney. And the reason she wanted to be a trademark attorney is because her father was sued for trademark infringement in his business and actually ended up going to jail for a short period of time because he had violated a court order and used the trademark when he wasn't supposed to, but in addition, that losing that trademark lawsuit just did incredible damage to her family, and they basically lost everything. They were living in I guess it would be like a equivalent of today, like maybe $5 million house in LA, California. And then after that happened, they had to move into a $1,400 on the worms. And you're very sad. That's what happened. So you need to just basically realize that if you are in that position, like she was, you have reasons to talk about why you want to trademark her. She went into without great grades, having attended the top 50 law school. She went into her first interview for a summer job and talked about that. And then she ended up getting a job at Law 100 law firm, the trademark attorney, talking about the same thing, wanting to have gone to trademark because she wanted to help her father, going into the trademark because her family had lost everything. And that's a nice story. I was able to, because I was a good enough attorney when I learned manual and everything, that I was able to help her father get out of it. Get a $14 million judgment against them, kicking off his credit report and everything by paying people out of the judgment in like $10,000, 15 or something. And I don't know how I did it, but I did it. But people having a recent law graduate have really strong reasons for wanting to do something. Talking about that makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference if you want to be an attorney, you ought to be an attorney anywhere. I told earlier the story about Dewey Valentine, how I always wanted to go to work there young. That made her think something positive. I had a girl that went to a top 100 law school and didn't do particularly well there, but and this is recently, so I'm not working with her right now, but was able to get into an Law 100 law firm to their immigration practice by talking about immigrating from Central America and how her family was there and how she helped get them out and how that was all she ever wanted to do because she realized how important immigration was. These sort of connections to the subject matter and working in a law firm and having personal reasons are very important. Other things that are important that I believe is no one in my family was ever an attorney. And for me, going to law school and getting a degree and everything was a huge, which was just a monumental, life-changing experience for me because it enabled me to get out of, no offense, but I was working in Detroit as a well, contractor, which is a job that I enjoyed, but it certainly didn't give me professional, I mean, doing what I wouldn't be doing what I did right now. I had an experience that I took LSATs and I was sick. I was sick for beginning of my third year or fourth year of college. Wasn't able to take it. I think I took it in, I think back then it might have been March or whatever, but I didn't get my results until April and really wanted to go to law school. But it wasn't able to take LSATs. And then when I took them and I got my results and applied to all these law schools, all of their classes were filled. By a couple I got listed out and then deferred for the next year at University of Chicago. But the idea being like, I was grateful to go into law school, and actually what was so powerful for me about it is it got me out of Detroit working as a contractor in a very messy type job and changed my life. Giving people reasons that are very important. I remember when I got my first job in the law firm, they said, "Why do you want to work here?" I said, "I really want to be a lawyer. It's blessed to be here after moving to Detroit." And the thing I'm most excited about is I get to work indoors and not outdoors. And it's fun. So people have to believe that there's something that's important to you about being a lawyer. And it's not just you're going there to make money. It's not just that they want to feel like there's something very positive and interesting, important to you about doing working in a law firm. They just really want that. So the better you can do with that, the better off they're going to be. Those are telling me about yourself is important. The other thing that I brought up earlier is your resume. So resumes are extremely important. And I lived a lot of resumes, advice and so forth on BCG, that articles and stuff that I've written, webinars, but one of the most important resume should show an interest that in interest, in your practice area. So what does that mean? It means people look at your resume. You might have been part of associations or something related to your practice area. You might have written articles about your practice area. You might have, I don't know, but showing some sort of focus and then giving law firms that is important. But you can talk about this, tell me about yourself in the interview question. You can talk about why you left off school and this stuff. You can talk about the focus that you have. You can talk about why this job is important to you. You can talk about you want to go someplace to learn. And those are some of the more important things. Okay, lots of good questions today. The former in-house counsel now transitioning back to a law firm setting. How should I frame my experience to highlight both my adaptability, my in-depth legal experience? Okay, like I said before, it's very difficult for an in-house counsel to transition back to a law firm setting. The only way that you can do it, please, is to apply to smaller firms that may not use you. I've had so many attempts and examples where I've had people that were in-house counsel at major companies and that had clients as they were working for when they were not, they had clients, which I guess would be the companies they were working for when they were giving business to when they were in-house counsel. What does that mean? So I had a guy that was working at General Motors and very high up to the legal department. And then he left, and because he was let go because of some dispute about seatbelts or something. But he left, and then when he left, he wanted to look for a job. And so I was like, there was a big firm in Detroit that he'd given tens of millions of dollars of work to when he was there. And I contacted them, and there was just crickets. Like, there's no interest. It's a lot of times when you're in-house and you go back to clients or firms you may have worked for in-house, it becomes very difficult you have a very difficult time getting back to a law firm. The reason it's very difficult is because you've made a choice. So if you made a choice to leave for another practice setting, it can be very difficult for you to come back. Also, the work that an in-house counsel does is typically different than a law firm. So in-house counsel will do some of the work, but when they're very difficult work, they typically will refer it out to a law firm. And the longer someone's in-house, often more work that they end up transitioning to law firm and doing it themselves. And unlike a law firm, so everyone knows what it's like to be a corporate attorney at Morrison and Forster and the standards and things that they have. But the standards that someone have working in an in-house company aren't necessarily the same as what they don't know. People don't know exactly what that experience is like to be. You still got some problems. That just becomes something law firms don't have any way of judging. So there's that. And then the final things, if you've been in a law firm for any length of time, if you're more senior, the odds are that you don't have business. And it's very difficult for an attorney to transition back into a law firm if they do not have different types of experience. So I wanted to show you real briefly, but I hope this helps everyone. And these are some of the things that law firms look for when they're hiring people remote and hiring people to work there. And I hope this should be helpful to everybody here because it's very important. So when a law firm is looking for people to work there, they typically want people that are currently associates, counsel, or partners there in a law firm. And they don't want people from in-house to government. That's what they want. This is the way you get hired. You get hired in a law firm, you show stability in terms of working in that practice. The other thing that law firms are looking for is they want you to have stable experience in one practice area. So they're not going to pay for people that have multiple types of experience. And then the final thing, they want people that have, typically 1 to 7 years of experience as a law firm associate. So if you have less than 1 year of experience, it's going to be difficult for you to get a job. But if you have more than 7 years of experience, you really need to have portable business and be in a specialized or be in a specialized high-end practice. So those are the obstacles you're against. Now, how do you overcome them? So the idea and diverse experiences, what you mean by that is often different practice areas or different types of roles and things. So it's the same thing that I discussed with you earlier. Most law firms are not going to be interested in someone who is an in-house counsel. They're going to be more interested in someone that has other types of experience. So what do you do? What do you do if you have in-house experience? How do you go to work in a law firm? Point that I want to make to everyone is you can see here that I was able to find potential places for this particular attorney to work. That was a criminal attorney. And what you need to do is you need to track down a lot of firms. You need to apply to a lot of firms because firms that have these certain types of openings, they're just not going to be interested in you. It's just, you have to think about it from their standpoint. You've gone into a different practice setting, and because you're in a different practice setting, law firms, why would they hire someone coming from in-house if they didn't hire someone from a law firm? So I'm going to say something right now. If you understand what I'm going to say, and if everyone on this call understands what I'm going to say, it's going to change the course of your life because you will always have access to positions. You will always be able to get jobs. You will never have any problem getting positions. I have taken attorneys. I've taken DUI attorneys and got for corporate jobs. You need to find firms that do the work that I'm talking about. I am going to start a service to help people with this that I can't help get jobs normally because this is just so crazy that people are doing it. But what I'm trying to make to you, and I think I showed some other people, I showed this a short while ago, but what I just want to make to you is that whatever your practice area is, you can go to, what does this person do? Help them, finance provider. I don't know what the hell this person does. But this person, let's just say they were a finance attorney. This person's a finance attorney. And so you go here and you would select finance. I'll just do regular finance. And so this person absolutely not be employed in BCG trying to represent them. So let me just find this person here. And I want to show you, and again, I'm not in any way trying to say anything is wrong with your experience. I'm just trying to show you that there's so many different places you can work. Most, and this is important for everyone to understand, right? And I hope, I want you to listen to what I'm saying right now. I really want you to. 85% of replacements BCG made are with firms that do not have opening. So what does that mean? That means the firm doesn't have opening. They're hiring in response to an application that or making to the firm for them that without them having an opening. And so if you apply to firms without an opening, you are the only applicant. What do you think that means? If they have work, they will likely hire you, right? So it's as simple as that. You need to, you apply to firms without openings, they're the only applicant, and if they have work, they will likely hire you. Simple as that. Very important for you to understand. Apply to firms without openings, you're the only applicant, if they have work, they're likely to hire you. So how do you find those firms? You can find them in a lot of ways, but just as an example, the person does, and these are made up. The person does all these types of finance. So I just search this recruiters, 94 firms, this person can apply doing that type of work. That's a lot. And a lot of them are not good, but I'll just check it out. And is this just in San Francisco? And then if you go to this regions of interest, the first Silicon Valley practice area, that we've got 47 firms there. And if you just go to recommend, there's just so many firms to apply to if they were in those regions. So there's hundreds. My point to you is that a lot of these firms, like probably whatever, Blogger, Magstone, these firms are not getting applicants from other firms. They're just not doing it. So if you apply to them, your odds of getting a job are very good. That's how I recommend doing a search. You can certainly apply to openings, but if you're applying to openings, people that are not are more likely to get a job. This next question, is it advisable to mention the hypercognites that worked on? Yes, of course it is. It's actually a good idea because what it does, it shows your enthusiasm, and then often people will respect people, and it's not everyone. I actually had a great call with a attorney yesterday in New York, and I don't know if he's an employer or unemployed, but he's a really nice guy. He'd worked on all these huge cases. And it wasn't even a big firm it was at, but it was like drunk hotels and all these big recognizable names. And I was like blown away. He put those on his resume. I think putting big cases on your resume is very good. If you're for big matters, I also like it when attorneys put on big cases. And then I like it when attorneys put on, in addition to big cases, I like it when they put on just different matters. Sometimes people it's transaction sheets and stuff. And what's nice about that is it shows how seriously you take the matters you worked on. Nice. It helps. That's something I recommend as well. You left your last previous job due to a bad boss, crushing workload. Okay. If you left your last previous job due to a bad boss or crushing workload or to help a relative, how would you answer that question in the job interview without disqualifying yourself? There's lots of ways to answer that question. And it's not a difficult question to answer. If it's a crushing workload, you have to just think about how that's going to work for you exactly. If you had a crushing workload, I would say you could say how many hours you build, and that is going to be helpful for you. You could just talk about how many hours or your work's your number of hours. So the way I would do it is I would just say I did very well there and build whatever the number was. I'm going to chat either number, build 2,400 hours or something like that. I was getting a lot of work, but a relative of mine dying sick, and I needed to spend whatever works needed to spend, and the firm would not tolerate. I think that's okay to say that, but don't think anytime that you have a very difficult time because of high workload on your resume or, high skill or kind of, or build a certain number of hours a year. That's how I would recommend answering that question. If you can talk about how hard you work, you go all of these hours to work when you were there, I think that's going to help you quite a bit. I don't think that is necessarily going to be fatal. It's going to be more difficult for your job. They may ask for if you have it. If you have it, I would talk about get dividends. So get recommendations. Just give me 1 second. There's someone to offer. Line up for me. Get around. It took me 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Just 1 second. And thanks everyone, by the way, for asking such great questions. I think I should really appreciate it, because I think that when you ask these questions, they're just very helpful. Yeah. All right. Goodbye, Joe. And by the way, I just wanted to make a quick point for everyone, because I know, especially among young attorneys, there's a lot of insecurity and support about losing job, bad things happening. I would say we have the majority of attorneys, meaning well over 50% of people earlier in their careers will lose jobs or make mistakes, or because everything is a learning curve, and you have to learn how to get along with an environment that may be different. And you have to learn the work habits of attorneys. You have to learn how to not make mistakes. There's just so many things going on when you're a new attorney that you need to learn. And so I don't think that you should ever really feel badly by yourself if things don't work out. You have problems earlier in your career, because it's just so common. It happens to everyone, and everyone covers, especially if you get fired, your firm runs out of work, you get highly aggressively criticized in a firm. All of these things happen. And then a lot of times firms will fire you or let you go, and it has nothing to do with you. It's just that they don't want to spend the money and they don't have the work, and so they blame it on you. That happens a lot of times in big firms. So I just would recommend be as careful as you possibly can in beating yourself up. And when these bad things do happen to you, and it happens to everyone, like you might find your work just incredibly criticized. You may find your work that people will tell you're not doing a good job. You may get into conflicts with people giving you work. I just really want you to understand, and this happens at all levels. It happens to partners, it happens to associates, and really there's a couple of things going on. There's partners that may have unreasonable expectations. So there are situations where there are partners in firms that consistently get rid of people. I remember I was interviewing once at this firm that had and I wasn't a labor and employment attorney, but they had a labor and employment attorney there for a couple, 2 or 3 in his department. And I was interviewing there, and then I didn't get the job. He was just incredibly rude to me in the interview. I mean, I don't think he was rude to anyone. And I didn't get the job. And my friend, who was mid-level associate there and had been at the firm for several years, said every single person that comes to work for this guy, no one lasts for more than a year. He just keeps rotating people. Okay? There are partners like that. Law firms are also, when they're paying you each week, each 2 weeks, that's money that often think they don't need to spend because there's not work coming down the pipeline. And so they let you go. Sometimes they'll let you go because they feel like that you don't like them. They want to bring in someone that likes them, or they feel that you're not going to be managed the way other attorneys in your firm are managed, and that the way they want to manage you, or they just think they're just weird. Sometimes they will just let you go. I remember I had a girl, she had gone to Berkeley and was working in a major law firm in Berkeley, and thought everything was going well. And one day they stopped into her office and said, "We just have basis to get fit and asked to leave." There was no indication that anything had ever gone wrong. I had a woman that also was working at a big firm, and she was like a 10th year associate and was hoping to make partner. And then she brought this up in her review. And they said, no one's going to, you're not going to, you turned down an assignment 4 years ago, and that really destroyed her brand. She was in the middle of working on this big matter, and they asked her to do something. She said no. And then all of a sudden, years later, it came up that they said to her that you can't work here anymore. You're not ever make part of the future assignment. Weird stuff happened. can't control how people are managing you. You can't control the politics of the law. And anyone here that feels badly about things that have happened, it's just, I mean, the same thing happens to partners. Partners will be at a firm and suddenly let go. It's just, this stuff happens over and over. It's not good. It's not something that can make you happy. Law firms not often have employment stability. I'll tell you one thing also that kind of scares me, and this happens quite a bit too, very often. So you may be an attorney that maybe you got into a good firm where everyone went to top 20 law schools or whatever and have these great pedigrees, and somehow you got in there and maybe you went to the top 50 law schools. So I don't know, an example would be California or New York, working at a firm where everyone from like Columbia, Harvard, and NYU, or all these good schools. And maybe you went to New York Law School and did really well and got a job there. Sadly, what happens is, regardless of the quality of work that you did, a lot of these firms will sometimes, when they let people go, you'll be the first to go, even if you think you have all this work and so forth to get this job. It is very sad, but this is what happens. And it's not something that's good. It's serious. It can hurt you. And you need to be aware that all these things can happen for management. Most of the time, also, when things are going very well and a law firm has a lot of work, they're never going to say negative things to you. That's just how it works. And they're never going to criticize your skills. Another thing I want to bring up to you, and I'm just bringing all this stuff up to you because I want you to understand how things work in law firms. Another thing that's very common is when you're a junior associate, typically you get your work criticized a lot. You get just freaking ripped up, and they're telling you that you need to do all this drastic improvement and so forth. And that's actually productive. I remember when I was associate at this firm, Dewey Valentine, I was basically a third year associate because I clerked, and then I'd gone to another firm for a year, and I was with this firm and learned how to do very good work based on working for very difficult people. The judge I worked for was extremely difficult and demanded I have this work that was basically perfect in terms of the lack of typos and things, and it really made me a good attorney. And when I started practicing with all that training, I actually was very good at what I did. But what happens in a lot of these firms is that you get there and you even the best firms, the biggest firms, and once you get 2 or 3 years of experience and you're productive, then the law firm will start giving you, after an initial round of hostile or formal reviews, telling you, and it's very common, most people this happens to, horrible reviews, like telling you they're talking about work, telling you that you're a great attorney, everything. So they'll give you these very positive reviews, and they'll start giving you negative reviews, and then they'll start giving you positive reviews. And then there's this honeymoon period where you have between 3 and 6 years, 6 or 7 years of experience, where you'll start getting these just wonderful reviews. They'll just say you're on the right track, you're doing a great job, we love you. And the reason that happens at that point is because you're very valuable as a 3rd or 6th or 7th year associate. You can work well, people can assign you things, and you know how to get around. So your work quality good, you're not making mistakes, and you're improving and learning. So you'll continue getting these great reviews. I've seen them, it's very funny. Like, we'll talk about what a great job you're doing if they have the work. If they don't have the work, but they have the work, they'll give you very positive reviews, like for your from 3rd to 6th or 7th. And then what happened? And again, this is very scary. Then they start giving you negative reviews because typically most people in large law firms, they don't want to make partner. They want to leave after they get senior. They want them to leave because the billing rate gets higher. And when they give them work that a partner wouldn't do, because similar partners make more money when they use their own work. So then all of a sudden you start getting negative reviews. It's very scary. Now, that does not happen all the time. It doesn't happen in every firm, but it happens in most of it. So then all of a sudden you start getting negative reviews. You don't know what the hell wrong with you, because you're everything had the previously were, and then they started to ask you to leave. I had one of the funniest experiences ever when I was at this firm doing Valentine. It's not funny, it was scary. So they had brought out these partners from their New York office to do these reviews, and they were going office to office giving reviews. And they got to my office, and these were two partners I'd never seen. And they started giving me this horrible review. It was like, no one trusts you anymore, no one likes you, your work quality is average at best, you don't fit in here, all these partners you've worked for just don't think you're good. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell's going on? And it was just crushing because I was doing a good job there. And then they said, and we're not even going to talk about what happened with Bob Smith. He was just appalled by your work. And you were just so rude to him. And I said, and I have never worked. I don't know what this is about. What are you talking about? And then they looked at their stuff and were like, what is your name? And I told them Harrison Barnes. And they said, oh, sorry, this is not, but because they didn't know who I was. We got the wrong person. Forget about this review. And they walked out. It's just absolutely crazy. And then the person that they did review was someone that I knew, that it was the senior associate that I thought was actually a pretty good attorney. And they were basically a senior and seeing me like he was getting work and everything. And so basically they were doing this thing with a senior associate that wasn't for me. I never got a review. I never saw these guys again, but it was just crazy. And then I'll just tell you another thing just to show you how insecure law firms can be and how these games work. I was there one day, there was this email that was sent out from the entire firm to the entire firm from this woman in New York, like some COO type woman, and suddenly it arrived in my inbox and it said, this is just the craziest thing I've ever seen. It was like a list of 10 or 15 senior associates. And it was like, this person we're going to ask to leave, this person we're going to ask to leave, this person we can defer to be a partner next year. He won't leave. This person won't leave, or we'll give them another year, or these senior associate. And it was just the craziest thing. I was like, what the hell's that? And then within 5 minutes, they turned off all the power in the law firm because it was a mistake. They turned off all the power and he said, oh, there's a power failure when you need to leave. But everyone saw this email that went out. And so on Monday, there was this attorney that had been there for 12, 13 years, and he was a senior associate, and he was down the hall from me. He was this very, very put together guy that had worked at Latham and working very hard for the firm. And he saw this email, and there had been a partner that had come over with a huge book of business, $30 million. And he'd come over from Paul Hastings, because they tried to bring all these people over from Paul Hastings. And he'd come over, and this particular guy that received his email was someone that wasn't part of all of these Paul Hastings people. And they had made 2 of these Paul Hastings people, one was in real estate and litigation, partners, because this guy had so much pull. And this guy didn't make partner until he wait another year. So the Paul Hastings partner with $30 million in business came by his office on Monday and had a assignment be given, and it was just something that was just be a dick move, like an assignment, like a first year associate. And this guy that's in my partner looked at him and just said, I'm just really upset. I just can't do this today. Can you give it to someone else? And the partner, turned out work. Partner said, okay. And then he came back like half hour, 40 minutes later. He said, in one check, right here, I have a check for, I don't know, 50,000, 75,000. I have a check for 75,000, and the severance agreement you can sign, or you can leave and get nothing. So the guy took the check and left. But if there's a bit inside the agreement, law firms can be very unstable, bad things on you, and many times you don't have a lot of control over it, and you can get bad reviews, you can get fired, you can have all these things happen to you. that may not be your fault. And so I just want you to realize that anytime you're working in a law firm, it can be very unstable, and all these things about being managed are, are important, but in addition, how bad things can happen to you regardless of how well you do. I hope that answers how I'm just showing you how crazy it can be. At the same time, I have a friend that started off after work that started off at Quinn Daniel and made good friends with John Quinn. He lived with them when he first moved out to Los Angeles, Australia, and never got business or anything. But he was friends with John Quinn and ended up retiring because he made so much money at the age of 45 or something. You can do very well as an attorney if you're able to get in with the right people, form good relationships. And it just can be, there's a lot of opportunity there. Give me 1 second. I have to use something because I'm first in need of someone. Don't have a lot. Time, big career in another field, an online JD option, green my work. Okay, anyone can find a job. So it doesn't really matter what your background is. It doesn't matter if you went to school and I'm there JD. It doesn't matter if you're older. But the best way to get a position is to just apply to a lot of firms that other people may not want. Just real briefly, say you want to do, I don't know what you want to do, but personal injury, long harms. So this is what I would do. I would announce there, whatever the practice area you want to do, but my advice would be to apply to as many of these firms as you possibly do. You need to go and make sure that you are applying to many possible firms as you can in your practice area. You can find these firms too, by the way, just by Googling them like I'm doing here. There's hundreds of firms that do different things in different cities. So you would just basically go in and you would say, I want to be a personal injury attorney, or I want to be an immigration attorney, or whatever the practice area you want to do. You apply to that and just say you want to get started in your career. Someone will hire you. Doesn't mean you're going to make a ton of money doing now, but someone will hire you. Okay, so the next question is, sometimes candidates have to make several rounds of interviews for one job at a firm. If the different rounds of interviews have different purposes, if so, what should you do or not do in the second or third round? Okay, so this is a good question. So every interview that you have is basically your job is to get to the next step. So you go into the first interview, they're looking to see you like you, see if you're fed, if you're hungry for the job, whatever it is. And your job is to get to the next one. You look for questions that are potential landmines, meaning things that could go wrong. After you look for those, and then after doing that, you can't to get to the next round. So you try not to, if someone asks for salary, you say, I'm interested in getting experience. I think that's more important than the salary or whatever. They say, we want you to work. Would you be okay not working remotely? You say, yes, I'm happy remotely. Would you be happy with a contract to temporary? Whatever questions they're asking you in the first round, these are things that they're just going to try to eliminate you for. Second and third rounds are typically to get more in-depth answers. The first round is just for meet and greet to see if you're okay. The second round is more related to trying to see if you would know the people there. So typically, first round, you typically meet with a few people. And then in the second round, you'll meet with more people so they can get their opinions. And then if you go into a third round is often more casual, like we like you, let's go to lunch. But often the third round is because they want you to answer questions that may not have been covered the first round. Each round of interviews, a good question serves different purposes. Sometimes in the first round, you might only meet one partner, and then they want you to meet other partners in the second round. Law firms don't want to spend a lot of attorney time, and if they're losing billable hours when they're talking to you, but they want to make sure that they think you're a good could be possibly a good fit for what they're seeking. Each round is basically where that be comfortable to see if there are potential doubts in terms of what a good attorney would be and that sort of thing, or your commitment, or if everyone likes you and that sort of thing. Often the third round could be a lunch or something. So that's to feel out if you would like to work there, if they think you would like it. That's to understand people like you. It's to understand if there's something weird that comes up or they talk to you. Okay, if I was representing a follow-up question to that, you can ask it in the chat and I'll answer it if I didn't answer your question. If I was representing a plaintiff client in special education school law cases against school districts, I wanted to transition to a firm that represents school districts, would it be a negative bar to my appointment that I work on the plaintiff side first? So that's a great question. We often have, for example, we work with people that may have, but the most common is an employment attorney. An employment attorney does defense and then wants to transition in plaintiff's work. Yes, law firms are a little bit skeptical of that. The plaintiff's bar is much different than the defense bar. The types of skills that are necessary often for a defense attorney are different than a plaintiff's attorney. The reason for that is plaintiff's attorneys are compensated based on winning cases or getting school districts or whatever, whereas the defense attorney is actually paid by a school district or whoever to defend the case, and they typically have different types of legal skills, meaning there's more emphasis placed on motion, summary judgment motion, and different things where they can afford to pay a lot more money. So your question is a good one. It is difficult to transition, but because there are so many school districts and so forth across the country that you could apply to, I think that your experience would be okay, and it wouldn't be something that you should worry about. Just here's any other question about it. There was a question about how do you answer the tell me about yourself interview question differently in a defense, in a transactional versus litigation job. I don't think that we're going to answer that. Here's another question. Should we list reasons to remove on our resume? No, you don't want to talk about reasons for it. Sometimes if you're a firm, went out of business or something, or you moved with a partner at your firm to another firm, you can talk about that. Generally, no, you don't have to list reasons to remove your resume. Okay, thank you for being here today. This was a very important one. I hope you learned a lot. Again, particular topic is incredibly important, and I hope this will help you with interviews and doing much better in your career in the future. Thank you for being here, and I'll see everyone next week.